This presentation is to identify the key risks to the Swindon and Wiltshire area. The essential part of the work of the Wiltshire and Swindon Local Resilience Forum is to plan and prepare for these risks so that we can have contingencies in place to minimise impacts.
Hello everyone. Today you have all of the local authority emergency planners from Wiltshire and Swindon presenting. We have Chris Manuel and myself, Sarah Kelly-Escott. We are the emergency planning specialists at Wiltshire Council. Nick Bancroft is the civil contingencies manager at Swindon Borough Council, and Tasha Lunn is an emergency planning officer also at Swindon Borough Council. We will be your presenters for this section.
As you can see from the map of Wiltshire in front of you, Wiltshire is a very large county and covers roughly 1,300 square miles with a population of over 720,000 people. It encompasses two different council areas, Swindon in the top northeastern area, with the rest falling under Wiltshire Council's authority more down towards the south. Although seen largely as a rural county, it does have some larger urban areas included. These include Swindon, as you mentioned earlier, Salisbury down towards the south, and Trowbridge down towards the west.
What is risk? Risk is the principal drive for all local resilience forum business. A risk is defined in the Civil Contingencies Act as a measure of the significance of a potential emergency in terms of its assessed likelihood and impact. Therefore, we collectively look at all the different types of incidents and/or emergencies that could occur in our area. We assess their likelihood and impact to give them a risk score. This slide shows how the assessment of the level of risk is carried out. We first take the likelihood of the incident happening. This is then compared to the impact and consequences. We combine these together to generate a risk score. National and local risks are contained within the National Risk Register. This is published on the LRF website under the Risk section.
Pandemic influenza is identified as one of the biggest risks nationally and is also our biggest risk within our local resilience forum area. It would have massive impacts on the health service, ability of people to work, and therefore the functioning of business and society as a whole, as experienced during the current COVID pandemic.
Flooding is one of the highest risks in the country as well, and locally we have been affected across Wiltshire and Swindon several times, both recently and historically. It is possible for almost any area to experience at least one type of flooding, making it an issue for everyone to consider. There are several types of flooding. It doesn't just happen when a river bursts its banks. A flood is defined as an overflow of water which submerges land, which is usually dry, be that from groundwater, rivers, surface water, or the sea. You can help when flooding is predicted in your area by reporting any blocked gullies and make sure that residents are aware of the areas which flood most often and the steps they can take to mitigate potential flood damage. There are measures including floodgates, barriers, and leaving land to flood to protect other areas, which will help this. Here we have the four different types of flooding. We of course don't need to worry about coastal flooding in Wiltshire and Swindon, but we can experience the other types. Fluvial flooding in the top left is river flooding, when rivers burst their banks and the additional overflow water spills into the riverbanks, where there may be fields, houses, roads, or other properties. Pluvial flooding in the top right is also known as groundwater flooding, where the water table rises to a high level and comes up above the ground surface. This type of flooding can take a while to recede. Flash water flooding generally occurs when there is an extreme amount of rainfall in a short period of time. The water isn't able to drain away fast enough to stop it pooling on the surface. Finally, we have coastal flooding, which of course affects areas closer to the coastline.
So next we have snow. Snow is either something we love or hate, whether it's the love we get from sledging down the hills or making a snowman, or the hate we get from not being able to go about our day's usual routine. We've had quite a few heavy snow showers in the last few years, none quite as memorable as the popularly named Beast in the East, which gave us quite a few problems for several days. Moving forward, it's very difficult to say if these snow showers will become more or less common, but it's something that's certainly worth planning for. As you can see from the box in the corner of the screen, snow is in the red category for risk in Wiltshire. Therefore, it's highly likely and will potentially have higher impacts compared to other risks. But you don't need me to tell you about the impacts. What's important is how the community can help and how we can deal with them. First of all, it's really important to drive sensibly in the snow. I know it's really difficult watching articles online saying something we think is really obvious, but it is really important to listen to them, and it's the best advice we can give. Of course, communities can also play their part by salting known hazardous areas like footpaths. This can help avoid slips and trips as much as possible, and it can also be really good to help clear snow from busy walkways, again doing the same sort of thing. Just like in COVID, we can also help those vulnerable neighbours by offering to help with their shopping and key tasks that they may find difficult to do in the snow. Just remember, snow might be fun for some, but it can be really detrimental on others. And only a few simple tasks, such as clearing paths and driving sensibly, can make all the difference.
Heat wave. What is a heat wave? The UK heat wave threshold is met when a location records a period of at least 3 consecutive days with daily maximum temperatures meeting or exceeding the heat wave temperature threshold. This threshold varies by county across the UK, coming in at between 26 and 28 degrees Celsius in the south of England and 25 degrees Celsius elsewhere in the country. So how can the community help? One of the best ways to avoid being affected by a heat wave is to be sensible in the sun. Help out vulnerable neighbours and friends, and ensure you have regular non-alcoholic drinks. Heat waves are becoming more common within the UK, but most of the time the Met Office can give advance warning to when this is going to occur. Heat waves have a larger impact upon elderly and vulnerable in our communities, as well as pets. There is also a large impact upon infrastructure. Roads can break in the heat, railway lines can buckle, so there can be a large disruption to transport. Aim to keep out of the sun during the hottest hours of the day, and make sure you're looking out and listening to local advice and following this the best you can.
Modern society is heavily dependent on IT and computer networks, mobile devices, and other technology. These are particularly vulnerable to groups who want to exploit the information contained on networks and on computers for their means. So cyber attacks occur regularly. If you suffer a cyber attack, you can report this via Action Fraud on 0300 123 2040. The National Cyber Security Centre have tips on how you can keep safe online and minimise the likelihood of you becoming a victim of cybercrime.
Did you know that we also plan for the failure of large reservoirs? This is a high risk due to the potential impact a large reservoir failing would have on the downflow environment. Thankfully, we don't have any reservoirs as big as the one on the slides in Wiltshire and Swindon, but we do have a number which we do plan specifically for. And thankfully, the most reservoir failures are minor and can be repaired quickly. It is now a responsibility of the reservoir undertaker to write an on-site plan for the reservoirs they're responsible for. The local authority will prepare off-site plans for the highest risk reservoirs in their area. If a reservoir near you is experiencing a potential breach, don't panic. The best thing to do is to follow the current advice of the emergency services on the scene, if they're present, or the advice of the reservoir undertaker, who is responsible for the safe operation of the reservoir itself.
Following nicely on from reservoirs, we now have water outages. Having water at our fingertips is something we take for granted. It's always there when we want it, be that for washing our hands, flushing the toilet, cooking, or just having one of those pot noodles that we all like to have. However, occasionally there might be problems with the supply of drinking water due to contamination, so it's important to know what we can do to help out. Firstly, you can see from the little box in the corner, this risk is yellow, so you'll be glad to know that in Wiltshire it's quite a low risk, but that doesn't mean it can't happen at all. As a community, you can of course help out by planning where water distribution locations could go. These are places like car parks or somewhere with a nice big area that's easily accessible to the public and also somewhere we can fit a lorry and drop water off. As with most incidents, you could also help us out by letting us know any vulnerable individuals in your community that might need priority water. You'll be glad to know that water companies do have a very good list of priority users. However, it's always good to check with people in the community who know their area better than anybody else. Finally, another good exercise would be to assist with distributing water to your neighbours and community. So once a problem occurs, it's really helpful to have people to help distribute water around to those people they know well.
Vehicle collision. A traffic collision, also called a car accident or car crash, occurs when a vehicle collides with another vehicle, pedestrian, animal, road debris, or other stationary obstruction, such as a tree, a pole, or a building. There are approximately 1,850 road deaths in the UK a year. The most vulnerable road users are motorcyclists and cyclists. How can the community help? It's important to remind all road users in the community of road safety and engage in any road safety schemes. Minor road traffic incidents occur daily upon our road network. Some can be more serious than others, resulting in major disruption and injury. This could result in the closure of motorways and local roads for a period of time. It's important to remember to follow highway speeds, rules and instructions, i.e. road and traffic reports, to keep yourself and others safe on the road. Make sure you plan your journey before you go and check local weather to see if it is safe to drive. And remember to take regular breaks on long journeys.
House fires is not actually identified as a specific risk on our risk register. The top 5 causes of house fires are things like cooking, leaving pots unattended on a cooker, heating, i.e. things like putting things on top of electric radiators, so clothing, which could then catch alight, electrical problems, so making sure that your electrical system is to the required standards and not overloaded with extra plugs, which would make the system trip. Smoking, be careful with lit cigarettes and dispose of those safely. Things like candles, don't leave lit candles unattended, and ensure that they are actually fully extinguished before going to sleep. Large items, large electrical items like tumble dryers, it's good practice not to leave those on when you're out of the house, as these are things which generate a lot of heat.
So after that, what else could happen? There is always the chance for something unexpected to occur, something which you haven't prepared for or possibly ever even thought about. This is why it's important for your plans to be flexible and to be able to be picked up no matter what the incident is. Specific plans for flooding, snow and other incidents are very useful, but you should also have a list of contacts, areas which are most vulnerable to known incidents, and to know generally what to do or where to go when the unexpected does occur.
So now we're going to look at some of the risks, what we've already covered today. Our recent experience has probably shown us quite how and why the pandemic is in the top right-hand corner of the map in red, with several other incidents also appearing in the red, such as snow and heatwave. You'll also notice that cyber is further down the table, but don't think this means it's not a worry. It just means we consider the impact and likelihood lower than some of the other ones on the table. Remember, everything we've been through today are for Wiltshire and Swindon, so they will be different in other areas. So don't be alarmed if you ever see one for a different locality that has the risk in a different position.
Finally, thank you very much for attending today and listening. We hope you found this section useful and informative. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us on the email addresses below. We hope you have a good day. Thank you.